turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what got you into wine. Tell us your favorite wine right now. Maybe
And
a little bit about what you love, and then tell us about the wines. And you guys can start drinking while Eric's talking. Don't wait. Ferlani Moni is going to be your first wine of the evening, and Eric's going to tell us a little bit about himself.
yeah, so hello everyone. I'm glad to be here tasting with you on Wednesday night. And yeah, so I work for SelectioNaturel, an importer of natural Italian wines from really all over the country. That's sort of growing at the moment. As we're hitting more regions, we have a bunch of new producers coming that we're launching with this year. I've been with the company for 3 years as of last week, and I started off in retail in terms of my wine, where my love of wine started from. Well, it really started working in restaurants, but I owned a wine shop in Chambly for 7 years called Le Caveau, kind of focusing on natural wine, and then made the jump to work for some sort of a mutual retailer who's now my boss, Matt Molo, who started the company 10 years ago in Boston. And he had a shop there called the Wine Bottega, really amazing shop. It's still there. And so I kind of made the jump with him a few years after he left that retail world behind himself. And here we are today. So yeah, we've been in Georgia really since I started with the company. It was the first state I opened since joining SelectioNatural, Georgia and South Carolina. And it's been amazing to see how our portfolio has grown in Georgia, but also just natural wine as a whole really taking off in Georgia and Atlanta over the last handful of years. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I live in Atlanta. My parents live in Atlanta, but basically my whole family lives here in between Atlanta and Roswell. So it's been an interesting year this past year, not being able to be on the road like I normally am, not getting to go see our producers twice a year like we usually do. But it's been fun doing things like this and still being able to connect with customers via Zoom and Google Meet, and sort of also been meeting with we have probably 7 or 8 new producers coming on this year, and we, in lieu of being able to go see them and talk to them, we've been doing Google Meets and Zooms with them. So it's been a bumpy but good ride this past year.
Awesome. Yeah, we love Eric's portfolio, Eric's company. We love everything they're doing. They align up with our ethos perfectly. And shortly after we opened Fermented, we started finding some really awesome producers from SelectioNatural and all Italy. And the way that this works in the world of wine, for those of you who don't know, there's 3 tiers of the distribution chain of how the wine gets to you. And you buy the wine from me, I buy the wine from a distributor. That distributor buys the wine from Eric. Eric and his company are the ones that are actually going over to Italy, finding these wines and getting them to the States. So we have Eric and Matt to thank for these amazing producers, because without them as a company, we wouldn't have these wines in the United States. So super important to support them. It's the relationships that we're building, since we can't get over to Italy and meet these producers firsthand. We're building the relationships with the great importers and distributors that we work with. And that's a lot of the work that goes on behind the scenes that you guys don't see, that gets these cases where only 2 cases come to the state of Georgia, and we're able to get a little bit for you guys to enjoy. And it's because of those relationships. And a lot of those wines are Eric's wines, which we're going to get right into with one of our all-time favorite producers from Italy, Cantina Ferlani.
Yeah, so Cantina Ferlani, one of our original producers when Matt started the company 10 years ago, kind of from Trentino in the northern part of Italy, in the foothills of the Italian Alps, in the Dolomite Mountains. Really kind of a sparkling wine place, Trentino, known for making Metodo Classico or champagne method style sparkling wines. Some really big famous houses there, like Ferrari and a bunch of other producers that make those types of sparkling wines. So, you know, fittingly, Matteo Ferlani is a sparkling wine specialist, but he also makes a lot of interesting and beautiful still wines, one of which we're hopefully everybody's tasting right now. This is only Moni is the name of the wine, and it's only the second vintage for this wine. He made it for the first time last year, slightly different blend. This year it's about a third each of Moscato Giallo, Noziola, native variety to this area, and Verdebar, which is also a very rare native grape to this area. And that's sort of one of the important things for Ferlani is really fostering these native varieties, and it kind of started after we originally started working with him. Kind of halfway through, he decided to be really a steward of these old varieties and old vines of them that he has on his property and has had in his family for some time. And so really kind of the focus of the winery changed a little bit. Instead of focusing, he still makes wine from Pinot Noir. He has a little bit of Chardonnay that he makes a champagne style wine with both of those grapes. But really the focus became less about those things and more about these native varieties. So two of them in this wine, Moscato Giallo, probably people know Moscato. There's many different varieties of Moscato or Muscat, as it's called in the States and in other countries. Moscato Giallo is probably the most commonly planted variety in Italy, but there's many other varieties. Giallo, I mean, it essentially means yellow, so yellow Muscat. Noziola is kind of it's indigenous to this area, to Trentino, Alto Adige, and Südtirol, which is these three cities together, three towns, three villages, and wine growing areas that are right next to each other up in the foothills of the Alps. And so kind of the way it really works on Alto Adige side, yeah, you can see it there at the top of the map. You have primarily German speakers. German mother tongue is spoken there, and they speak a little bit of Italian. In Trentino, it's Italian, and they speak a little bit of German. So there's a lot of influences between the two areas in the names of things, in the language that's spoken. And a lot of unique grape varieties. So this wine is, again, Moni Bianco, little bit of skin maceration, 6 days or so, which just gives it a nice kind of golden color. I think this year it also was bottled. He did less rackings of the wine, so there's a little bit of turbidity to it. Racking is just moving the wine from tank to tank. He did a little bit less of that in this vintage and left a little bit of the kind of like spent yeast cells, the particulate. So it gives it kind of a nice like turbid sheen. It's not completely clear, and just a really beautiful color on this vintage, I think. What else can I say about it? I think this is probably, I really liked last year's version, the first version, which was mostly Noziola and a little bit of Moscato Giallo. This, I feel like, kind of hits all the right notes for me. I love sort of aromatic or semi-aromatic grapes anyway, and I think just there's that nice sort of like lychee and stone fruit notes from the Moscato that you get without it being sort of really overt and over the top. And then really the Noziola and Verdebar are more about texture and weight in the wine. So I think he really nailed this vintage. This is obviously only two in the books, but this is my favorite of the two for sure. All done in stainless steel, as most Ferlani wines are. There's one or two that aren't, but fermented and aged in stainless steel.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
so good. So good.
I think it also sort of has the right acidity without, but also kind of the perfect weight and texture too. Like I think really the acidity and the weight are in perfect harmony this year. Like Nosiola, like I said, can have a little bit of a waxier texture to it, and I think, you know, he just really nailed the acidity versus viscosity thing in this wine.
Yep. Yeah, he did. It's absolutely stunning. Never had a wine that I haven't thought was amazing from Ferlani yet, but this one is up there. Super limited, $25 a bottle, great price point. Eric, how much of this are we going to see? How much dropped this drop? Is there going to be another drop? What should people expect if they love this wine?
It's a question I've heard 3 times today already from different states, from Missouri and Louisiana. And the sad truth is it's sold out for the vintage. And it went really, really quickly. The good news is there's another new wine coming once this is gone. That'll come in June. There's actually 2 new wines. I'm really excited about both of them, but there'll be a new white wine and a new red wine in the same price point. Nice. That he's never made before.
Cool.
So we'll talk more about that, Adam, but those will kind of, when these are gone, we'll straight away have those, and they're pretty impressive wines. I don't want to say too much, but they're really, really good.
So stay tuned for Ferlani. If you love this, get it while it's here. If you want to reserve some, let Aaliyah and Alex and us know in the chat. And when are the bubbles hitting, Eric? Did they land with this, or are they coming?
The bubbles will be coming. The bubbles will be coming. They actually are leaving this week from Italy. Okay. The 3 spring pet nats. So the Macerato, which you guys well know, the pink Pinot Grigio. I did talk to Matteo yesterday, and he told me, I asked him, he said, hey, I'm sending you samples of all the spring pet nats, and the 2 new still wines. And I was like, great. What do you think about the 2020 pet nats? And he said that for one thing, they're a little bit richer. And so he did a little bit actually more skin maceration on the still wines before they're re-fermented in bottle as pet nat. He did. He said also, consequently, they ended up having a little bit darker color, a little bit more vivid color, and a little bit. They're also, I think, a little bit maybe more turbid than normal. But he said he was really, really happy with them. He was pretty excited, so that got me pretty excited. Yeah. And so those will come. I mean, if we're thinking like those will probably be here 5 weeks from now. Okay. If they do in fact get picked up this week. Yeah. And then very shortly after that, these 2 new wines, the new red, new white, will come with the vermouth and amaro.
Awesome. And so if you love this, if you love pet nat, you've got to get on Ferlani's radar. They're just going to continue increasing in popularity, and there will come a day where they are so allocated that if you don't know about it ahead of time, you're not going to be able to get your hands on it, because they're going to be sold out before they even land in the state. And that's the kind of brand that they're building, and just it's the nature of the beast. He only owns so much property. He can only make so much wine. There's so many people who want this wine. It's such affordable price points for what it is, that it just hits all the marks to become really, really popular. But there's always something coming. That's the great thing about it.
That's the good thing about
always something coming.
Well, and I believe I did see today, Adam, that we do have the Ferlani Rosso sparkling.
We have, yes, we got the Rosso bubbles back in. We got 11 bottles of their still Taroldiga, which is dynamite.
Oh wow!
And then the new stuff as it's coming, we got the carbonic Mino in, and then we should have a couple more cases of this coming and a couple more cases of the carbonic Mino coming. Again, if you love them, which probably all of you do, get on Ferlani's radar because everything they do is awesome. All right.
Yeah. He's super consistent and
Yep.
a really intelligent winemaker who's made wine all over the world. He made wine in Australia, a little bit in the States, and he went to, a lot of people don't know this, he went to the best enology school in Italy is in Trentino. And that's where he went to school. So
nice. All right. Padari Chulario is next, our other favorite Italian producer in the room. We love these guys.
I should have worn his t-shirt. I
should've.
totally forgot.
Yeah.
I can't fit in his t-shirt.
I can't either.
They do shrink.
They're European sizes and they shrink. So a medium is really a small, a large is really a medium. But yeah, Chulario, so such an amazing producer in the Piedmont. So in Barolo, Barbaresco country, above Milano. And he is a third generation winemaker with his wife. They both come from winemaking families, and when they got married, sort of both sides of the family's holdings became part of their estate, Padari Chulario, which is obviously named after Fausto Chulario. And so they have, I think, about 15 hectares under vine. They have, I think, their property and farmhouse, and sort of everything else around it. They have maybe 30 hectares of land itself. But some of it is planted to fruits and different things. But they sort of joined forces. And so they really have little parcels on both sides of the river, the Tanaro River, and, you know, some of Cinzia is his wife's name, really sweet woman. You know, some of her holdings were where there's white grapes. Some of his were red and white, and now they have all of these interesting little parcels of old vines and indigenous varieties all over the Piedmont. And so, yeah, they've been farming organically for a long time. They got certified, I think, in 2010 or so. Can't remember exactly, but it's been a while. And they do everything by hand. They harvest by hand. Everything is made in a really natural way. Some of the wines get no sulfur. Some of them get a little bit post fermentation. But we're here to talk about a new wine, a brand new wine that they made this year, called Vasca Due. And Rosso Vasca Due means tank 2. So they made one tank of this wine, and it happened to be tank number 2. And it basically comes from a parcel, a little small vineyard that one of Fausto Chulario's friends owns, one of his old friends. And it is essentially made up of 3 varieties, mostly Fresia, with a little bit of Dolcetto and a little bit, oddly enough, Sangiovese, which is unheard of in the Piedmont, because really in the Piedmont it's about Nebbiolo and Fresia and Dolcetto, Barbera, all the typical things that you would expect in Piemonte. But this parcel of old vines has had these 3 grapes, and so Fausto talked to him about purchasing them this year, purchasing all the fruit and making a wine from it. And so he did, and he harvested them together and co-fermented them and made this little field blend in one big, I think it's fiberglass on the inside, it's wood on the outside. The tank was actually outside. And I think the wine completely aged outside in this tank, as far as I know, unless they moved it. And so he was talking about this wine with my boss, and we were like, yeah, we would like to have this little blend. And he sent us some samples out of the tank, and we tasted them, and this was, I think, in December or so, and we loved it. And there was, there was one tank. So my boss, Matt Molo, who started the company, said, why don't we do it in 2 liters? Like, and then, we're going to get what we get. However many 2-liter bottles this one tank makes is what we're going to sell. And then it's done, and so that's what they did. And obviously there's a picture of the tank on the label. That really is what it looks like. And so, yeah, I mean, he originally, we were just going to do the regular 2-liter flip top, and then he decided to just crown cap it for travel. And so I actually haven't tasted the bottled version. I've only tasted 2 different tank samples that he sent in a little small bottle. But I would imagine it's drinking pretty much how I remembered it, which is really fresh, a little bit floral, a little bit of like, sort of star anise, like, I mean, really just a fresh wine that's built to be in a 2-liter bottle. It's built to, because it's so versatile. You can have it with just about any food. Now outdoor concerts are starting to happen again, and like, if you could go to one, if you have an opportunity to go with one, this would be the perfect thing to take. Yes. And even with just like a little chill on it, especially as it gets warmer outside, this thing is just, it's for any and every occasion, really.
As the kids call it these days, this would be your ultimate glug-glow wine.
Yes.
I just had somebody buy it to take camping. We had somebody this weekend grab a bottle because they were going to a restaurant and they needed something that went with fish, and they only wanted to pay 1 corkage fee. So what better way to get the money out of the corkage fee than to take a 2-liter with you that goes with everything? The ultimate pizza pasta wine.
That's diabolical. Awesome. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. And that's the crazy thing, is like, to have with fish, this would totally work with so many things, like any sort of fattier fish, like salmon or anything that's got kind of like a cold water fish that's got a little layer of fat on it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Like, and I think, whatever, it's 2 liters of wine, so it's, I mean, in fact, Chulario obviously kind of made these Italian liter wines famous, really, when, some years ago, and this, I think we sort of always wanted to have something from him in 2 liters, in double the size. And so we'll see if he makes this again next year. I guess it'll come down to whether he has access to the fruit again. His friend, I've seen a picture of him. I don't know his name. I've never met him. I don't know that much about him, but I hope he does sell him a little fruit so we can have this back again next year. But it comes in 6-packs, obviously. And I think for the whole country, we got maybe like around 200 6-packs or something like that, so,
and we got like 15 of those 6-packs. So come get it while we got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much gone everywhere else. I mean, you'll see some in some other states, but we haven't had any. I mean, it's sold out immediately, as most Chulario wines do these days.
Yep.
So yeah, I actually need to go find a bottle myself. Because somebody else has asked me last night, another friend who works in retail, like, how's the Moscato? And I was like, I've only tasted the samples. Like, I still haven't copped the bottle for myself. So I need to make that happen. I will do that soon.
Well, you know where to find it.
Yeah, exactly.
We
got a couple
covered.
other things I need. I saw on Instagram today. So
yeah. So if you guys love it again, get it while we got it. It won't be here forever. If you haven't tried the other Chulario wines, you need to. Everything they do is amazing as well. We have a little bit of the orange that just came in stock. We'll have that. We've only got 3 cases of it this year. I think we've got some Barusco coming, some Granozza coming back with a new color I saw on Instagram from I
Yes.
think you guys. That was crazy
So
looking.
we should talk just a tiny bit about that, because then I won't have to tell you privately.
Yep.
So it looks amazing this year. For one thing, the color is so vivid and crazy, and it's definitely turbid.
Yep.
But he did a separate earlier harvest for Granozza this year of the Granulino, and so the pH is really low, and it just it has this insanely vibrant, beautiful color to it. I can't wait to taste it.
Me
But
too.
it's landing in Jersey, I think, next week or so, and
Nice.
I'm sure that and shout out to Avant Cartier. They are our distributor in Georgia and South Carolina, and we couldn't get these wines out to Atlanta and all the places without them. So
Yep.
don't want to leave them out. But they should be, I'm sure, bringing it down as soon as it lands. So
Nice.
be on the lookout.
Oh, I am. All right. 46 bucks on the Rosa Vasca, or 45 actually. So it's even $1 cheaper than if you buy 2 Chulario liters, like the E series, and it's dynamite, as you can tell. All right. Next up, super special. Only 2 cases came to the state of Georgia. We were lucky enough to get one of those. Tell us about it, Eric.
Yeah, so one of our brand new producers, and we're so excited about these folks. They're in Lazio, near a crater lake, actually, called Lake Bolsena. And the soil here is volcanic because they're in this part of Lazio where most of the soil is this broken up volcanic soil from the volcanoes. There's a bunch of extinct volcanoes around there, and some of them are lakes like Bolsena, but it creates a really unique and complex profile in the wines of the area. And one of the grapes that really only grows in this area is called Proconico, and it's a white grape. It's very similar to Trebbiano Toscano in terms of its sort of base genetics, which is a white grape from neighboring Tuscany. And Lazio, by the way, if you don't know, is outside of Rome, sort of surrounds Rome. Rome is in Lazio, and the wine region is sort of above it and below it. And so Proconico, this indigenous variety that you only find here in this part of Lazio, not in all of Lazio, only this area and a neighboring area called Orvieto. Some of you may have heard of Orvieto before, a place for white wine, and they also have Proconico there. But the winery Cantina is called Cantina Ortaccio, started by a couple, Massimo and Patrizia Antonuzzi. Massimo is actually cousins with another famous natural wine producer in Lazio called Le Coste. And I heard that they are in a tiff and they don't really talk that much these days, but they are cousins. And Ortaccio is unique in many, many different ways. One is they make and age the wines in a limestone cave, which is something unheard of in Italy. They do have limestone in this area in addition to the volcanic soil and a little bit of basalt and schist and other soil types, but they have this cave, and that's something that is very common in the Loire Valley of France, in Saumur Champigny, in Chinon, and some of those places. Yeah, you can see a nice shot of Massimo there, pulling some wine out with the wine thief, and the walls of the cave. And so it's just unheard of in Italy. Most of the wines, most of the cantinas, the wineries are above ground. Some of them are really nice and ornate, like in Barolo and Barbaresco, but it's very uncommon to see that. So that's something really unique. They make wine without any additives of any kind. They make wine like it was made 100+ years ago, and so they are practicing biodynamic. They have really old vines, 70 to 90 some odd years old for some of the different varieties, and they work only with indigenous varieties to this part of Lazio. And yeah, they're 400 or 500 meters above sea level, depending on the parcels. They're very, very small. I think I can't remember exactly. It's less than 2 hectares. It probably more like 1.5 or something. The other unique thing about this wine in terms of its vinification is they use old oak and chestnut barrels that they buy used from other winemakers, from other wineries, and they shave the inside, shave and sand and recondition the inside of them, basically. That's also unique for Italy, but especially this part of Italy, where Lazio is really known for making white wine. And so this is a white wine. It's really an orange or amber wine. And it's a fascinating wine. So it is mostly Proconico, as you can see on the slide, a little bit of Trebbiano Giallo, and a little bit of Malvasia, 2 other native varieties, but a little bit more common in this part of Italy. And so what they've done here is there's a tiny bit of the juice that is direct press. So it goes through a basket press and is kind of separated off. And then the rest goes typically 10 days of maceration. In this vintage, I believe it's closer to double that. And then aged in these old oak and chestnut barrels. So this is a white wine or orange wine made like a red wine. That's sort of what makes these wines different and special is this idea of taking the free run juice, the pressed juice, and then also just the grapes themselves and macerating them on their own skins, just like you would a red wine. And so I think this wine is fascinating in the sense that I had one of these recently, I guess about a month or so ago, and we drank it over 3 or 4 days, 3 days, I think. And the first day was beautiful. It was exactly what I expected it to be in terms of what I'd heard about their reputation, and was just kind of captivated by how savory it was and how layered and complex and so much happening in this wine. And then we vacuum in the bottle, put it in the fridge. And we should talk about temperature because I know Adam talked about it in the beginning. These types of wines, these skin contact wines, especially something like this that's seen significant skin contact, 20 days or so, they should always be served at cellar temp, or the same temperature you would drink your red wines, basically. Not quite ambient temperature, but not cold either. Because it really dumbs down a lot of the sort of viscosity and the weight of the wine when you're tasting it, as well as the aromatics, but also mostly it really changes the way that the wine hits your palate. So always want to, I mean, and honestly, you could drink it at room temperature and it would be just fine. And so day 2, when I tasted the wine again with my wife, she was like, wow, this is, yesterday it seemed, and she loves skin contact wines, I should say that first, but she said this tastes more like a red wine today than it did yesterday. She was absolutely spot on. And it really did morph into a red wine on day 2, and it was just so captivating. I mean, we couldn't stop talking about this wine, and this producer, I think, you know, they make another skin contact wine and a few reds too, and they're all phenomenal, and they're all very thought-provoking wines. And you know, this is something obviously that's great and almost built to have with food to a certain degree, especially on day 1. I think, you know, it's so great with with sort of richer things. It has nice acidity to it, but it's got some tannin too, you know? I mean, that's the thing about these types of white wines or orange wines is because they spend so much time, the juice with the skins, they're leaching some of that tannin out. And then this also having been aged in barrel, old barrel too, which tend to have those more dry tannins to them. It sort of needs something, it needs food that's a little bit bigger. Like, you know, I mean, you could definitely have this with red meat and it would be fine. Or, you know, certainly anything leaner meats too, but I mean, I think you could get away. This would be amazing with like a carpaccio or tartare or something, you know.
Yep.
Especially, yeah, I think a tartare would be amazing with a little caper.
Yeah.
So yeah, little husband and wife team that are making, honestly, or Cantina Ortaccio, we've heard about these guys for years. We had a hard time convincing them to sell some wine. They're a bit of a cult producer in Italy, and especially and the wines really are only sold in and around certain wine bars in Rome. Now to us in the U.S., and a little bit is exported to Denmark, and that's it. And you said you got 2 cases of this wine. Only, I think 35 came to the U.S.
Yep.
So
no, we only got one. We only got one.
Okay,
I think
well,
Avant only had 2 for Atlanta.
Some of the wines we brought in 4 other wines from them. Some of them we got, one of them in particular, we got 20 cases for the whole country.
Wow.
So they only made it to 5 or 6 states.
Yeah.
So very rare, and we've got a huge amount of positive feedback and sort of hysteria over these wines. So it's great when something that we're really excited about, because I think, you know, for me specifically, and probably Matt would agree with this, is just these wines have a lot of soul to them, and they're also, for being, you know, for making a wine or wines in a limestone cave in old barrels without any sulfur, and making really clean, thought-provoking wines is a really, really hard thing to do.
Yep.
Incredibly hard.
It's all about the vines. You go ahead, Aaliyah.
Oh, just that, I think you nailed it, calling this a thought-provoking wine. Like, my mind is blown over here by just the complexity of flavor and trying to think it through, and then Lauren said she wants this with Thanksgiving so bad. Oh yeah, and goes right back to what Adam was saying. Just pour some of this on a turkey leg, and that'd be really good.
Yeah,
like
make
this,
a little reduction with it. Yeah,
this is something unlike anything certainly I've ever had before, and I think it's unlike something I think a lot of people have ever had before, and that's just really special. Like, whether it's one you want to drink on a day-to-day basis or not, it's one that I think everybody certainly can agree they'd be thinking about, because it's just so different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely not an everyday wine, right? I mean, even if you could get enough of it to drink it every day, it's just not built for that. And it's really, I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up with wines like this and like, oh, you have to have this with food, you know, because it has all of this complexity and stuff. That's not necessarily true. I mean, not for me anyway. Like, I could drink this wine over the span of several hours or a couple of days and just enjoy having 1 glass of it every day until it's gone, because the wine really will hold up that long, and seeing how it changes, but also just enjoying sort of the layers of this wine by itself. So I know some people would be like, oh, you're crazy that you have to have this with food. You don't.
But it's awesome with food too.
But it's amazing with food.
Yep. $37 a bottle. Again, we got a case. That's it. It's dynamite. It's special. It's unique. And Eric, thank you guys for convincing them to sell you some wine, because
Yeah.
if you hadn't, then I never would have gotten to try this wine, and it is special.
Yeah, we're excited about it. So and then yeah, we're going way down south here to Sicily, Sicilia, to a producer called La Maresca, and the owner. There's a nice little picture of him, the Italian George Clooney, and his wife, who's actually Belgian, but Filippo Rizzo, or Phil Rizzo, as we like to call him internally. One of the most amazing people I've ever met. Hands down, one of my favorite people in the wine business. A total straight shooter, says exactly what he thinks. He was a restaurateur in Belgium for a long time. That's where he met his wife. And he moved back in the early aughts to take over his family's farm. His cousin, aunt and uncle and cousin, I believe, had it before him. And so he's kind of in the middle of nowhere in Sicily. He's on the southern coastline, about an hour and a half from Catania, which is on the East Coast. If you ever fly to Sicily, that's likely where you'll fly into, either there or Palermo on the West Coast. But Catania, about an hour and a half from Catania, sort of on the way to Vittoria and sort of some of the other things. But it's just inland from the southern coastline, near a village called Gela. There's nothing there. There's not even really there's one winery behind him. Other than that, there's no other wineries around. And so he took over these old vines of Nero d'Avola, Frappato, a little bit of Vermentino, which is very, very unusual in this area, in Sicily in general. And it's actually a Corsican clone of Corsican variety, excuse me, of Vermentino. And there was a little bit of Grenache there, and we are tasting, I guess today, the Vino Rosso, which is his Vin de Garde. This is his most important wine. He likes to talk about that a lot when you talk with him. These days, it historically was 50-50, mostly 50-50 Frappato and Nero d'Avola with a little bit of Grenache. I don't know that he's still using the Grenache in this wine anymore, because he's planted a lot more Frappato and a little bit of Nero d'Avola, to be honest with you, anymore. And I think probably the Grenache isn't going in this wine anymore, but I haven't spoken with him in a year or so. This is the 2018, I believe. We verified, yeah, Adam?
Yep.
So I had this wine a week ago, actually, so it's really fresh on my mind. He has a really small property. It's all farmed organically. It has been, even when his cousin had owned the property. And I believe they're certified now, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's 10 acres, like 6 or so hectares or whatever. And he's not all of that is under vine. Some of it is under olive trees. He's got some 400 or 500-year-old olive trees. He makes a beautiful olive oil. He's got a bunch of vegetables and I think 1,000-year-old carob tree, and he's got a lot of different things on his property. Yeah, there you can see a little shot of the cantina. It's a beautiful place. You can see in the picture of the vineyard, there's these rolling hills all around. And if they were a little bit more green, you might think you were in Ireland or something. It's really quite a unique place in Sicily that I haven't seen. And it's an hour and a half from Catania, so an hour and a half from 2 hours from Mount Etna. So the soil here is different. It's not so much volcanic, it's limestone and clay, bands of limestone and clay, which are really obvious. You can see that the red tint in the picture with the cantina there, because that's from the clay. And so this wine is made up from some of mostly from the original old vine Nero d'Avola that was on the property when Filippo took it over, which are about, I think, 65 years old at this point. And then Frappato, some of which is about 40 years old at the oldest, and those vines go into this wine. And then some he planted in 2005 from cuttings that came from another winery in Vittorio called Cos. And then again, I think right when I went to visit him in the summer of 2017, he had just planted some the summer, the season before. So some of the younger vine Frappato goes into this wine, but most of it goes into another wine, a rosé that he makes. So this wine really represents his oldest vines, and that's why I think it's so important to him. And so it's just called Vino Rosso, red wine. It has a simple name, but it's not simple to him at all. And so it's fermented, it's macerated on the skins in open top bins, and then it goes into cement, and it's aged exclusively in cement tank the entire time. And it typically for a year or so, depends on the vintage. And he is not super dogmatic about sulfur. Sometimes the wines, like for instance, 2019, he used no sulfur on the wines. And then in 18, I think he used a little bit post fermentation. But he just, if he feels like he needs to, based on what the vintage has given him, he will. And if he doesn't, he won't. And he never uses very much anyway, so it's not a big deal. He is a really small producer who has become one of the cult producers in Sicily, and his wines are sold a little bit in Australia, in Scandinavia, in the US, of course, and Japan. Those are really, and then obviously in Italy. And in Italy, they're quite hard to find, especially outside of Sicily, but you can find them in Rome and Venice and a few places where there are natural wine bars there. We never have enough of these wines to satisfy the demand. The 2018 specifically, I think, was a little bit different vintage for him. I mean, I think the wine, it was on release a little bit tighter and more closed up than in recent vintages. It's really come into its own, having just tasted it a week ago. It's really softened up and become a beautiful wine. I think it still is a wine I think you could age for some time if you wanted to. We had that bottle open for 2 days, and I think it was even better on day 2. It was great on day 1, but it was mind-blowing on day 2. So I think it was a little bit cooler vintage in Sicily, and I think it yielded a wine that's kind of a little bit more age-worthy, I guess you would say.
Eric, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Burgundy. There's some funk on the nose, there's some structure, some acid, the bright red fruits. Yeah,
I mean, there was a little reduction on this vintage, and I think that's why it was like so crazy on day 2, is like when all that sort of blew off. A reduction, for folks that don't know, is sort of the opposite of oxidation, and it happens in natural wines that are made in an anaerobic environment where they're aged in these closed, either stainless steel or wood aging vessels, tanks, if you will. And so they're a bit starved for air because they're immediately bottled from those. They get a little bit of air when they're racked into the bottling tank, but it's also pretty prevalent in certain vintages. I remember, bringing up Burgundy, 2008 was a vintage in Burgundy where all the red wines were reduced. And it just happens with certain vintages, they lend themselves towards reduction in wines, but it ages off the wine and it blows off the wine when you open it. But it causes the wine to be a little bit constricted and have a little bit of a funky nose to it that can smell like a struck match or different things, really. depending on the grape variety or varieties. And I think, yeah, similarities to Burgundy for sure. And I think, this wine really, for me, I like to see these kind of structured vintages that I can lay down if I want to. And this being his sort of most serious wine, it's good that it's got some structure to it. But I think this was a vintage with a little bit more acidity and sort of less unctuousness to it, but it has complexity in spades, I think, as a result. So yeah, I was when I tasted it on release, I was like, this is going to be better in a year or so. Now that having decided a week ago, I was like, wow, this wine has really turned into something special. So I actually haven't even tasted the 19 yet. So I don't really know how it stacks up, but I can't get any of it. But there was something else I was going to say about him and the property. Oh yeah. One of the things that I think is really unique about his wines is he has in the vineyard around the Frappato mostly, but a little bit around the Nero d'Avola too. He's got all of this wild dill, wild oregano, the carob trees, wild green onions, all of this stuff that's just been there forever, that comes every year. And he would probably call it, whatever. It's like, I call it Sicilian garrigue, like it's the scrub brush that's sort of, and you get a sense of it in the wines.
Yeah.
Especially the 100% Frappato wine, but I get it in this wine every year too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe, Frappato is a lighter grape, so it's more of a blank canvas, where Nero d'Avola has the spiciness and an intensity and a dark fruited personality, where the herbs and the wild herbs and things don't permeate it quite as much. But I always get it in really all of his wines. The new spring release will be, I saw that it's going to be leaving Sicily soon, so we'll have those wines, and I heard that we're going to have a little bit more of them than we usually do, so that's always good news. And he is just a really thoughtful, intense, but really amazing guy. He owned a restaurant in Belgium, so he was a chef by trade until he started making wine, and so he does everything with sort of a chef's mind, a chef's sensibility, if you will. And visiting him right when before I started working with the company, I took a group of customers of mine from my shop from Le Caveau. I took them to Sicily, and we did like a tour, the whole island, East Coast and West Coast, and I went early so that I could go see Filippo, and it was honestly one of the best winery visits of my entire life. And I've been to a lot of wineries because he's such an amazing host and just so authentic and excited about what he's doing there.
Yep. Well, and it comes through in the wines, really. And we can't wait to go to Sicily. I will be consulting you when we put that trip together again. Just a couple things.
For sure.
Real quick, we need you to come up with your favorite wines, put them in the chat function so Leah can add them up. And while you're doing that, I just want to mention a couple other upcoming items. First off, 43 on the La Maresca Rosso. If you love it, it is dynamite. We've got about, I think, maybe 8 or 7 bottles left in the store, and that's it. And Oregon trip. Don mentioned it last week from Avant Partir. If you're interested in the Oregon trip, we need to know now because it's filling up fast already, and it might be close to be getting full. Natalie, I know you told us you were interested. If anybody else is interested, let us know. We probably won't ever announce this one. We won't put it on social or email because I think it's going to sell out that quickly. Again, only 14 spots, so very limited. August 8th-ish, right around there for 3 days. You can email us for more details if you need them. And then Eric, we have set the date for our Fermented Natural Wine Festival.
I heard.
And it's going to be June 13th.
So excited.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to host a natural wine festival in Alpharetta. We're going to hold it on the street in between the Nest and the townhomes back there. Get a bunch of cool natural wine producers, a couple food trucks, and make a day of it. So put the 13th of June on your calendars. We'll announce ticket details as soon as those come out, and it's going to be awesome. And Eric will be there pouring
I'll be there
amazing
pouring
wines
something.
as well.
I don't know
Yep.
what, but
Yep.
something good.
Whatever's available.
Yeah, whatever we have at the time.
Yep. All right, Aaliyah, how we doing? Eric, what's your favorite of these four right now? I know you didn't have them all to try tonight, but if you had to pick one to choose to drink this evening, which one would it be?
For me, like for tonight, right now, if I could snag any one of these, I would probably drink the Moni, only because I only got to have one little taste when I took the wine out into the market, and that's it. And it's sold out now. And I also I love like really aromatic, fresh wines like that during this season,
Yep.
when it's starting to get warm. So, and it kind of just screams spring to me,
Yeah.
So
I'm torn between all of them. Man, it's so hard.
I know.
I think I'm gonna have to go with today the Rosa Vasca 2 or Duo. I love it. I love the packaging. I love everything about it. It's drinking so awesome right now. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a tough choice because I love absolutely every single one of these wines.
Yeah.
Aaliyah, who's our winner?
Well, today our winner is actually a very clear winner. It is the Ferlani Moni today.
Wow.
Yay!
That doesn't surprise me.
No, it's spring perfection. It tastes like a wine that you could be drinking when it's so beautiful outside. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
I believe we're sold out in the store already from this tasting, from everybody who put it in the chat function. We are, I think, getting one or two more cases. I'll confirm that before we tell you that there's more to buy, but check with us in the store next week because it'll be back. Actually, we'll have more of it on Friday if we can have more of it this week. For those of you who are still owed outstanding Patroni bottles, I have not forgotten about you. It is not here yet. So we will be fulfilling those committed bottles as soon as they land. And am I forgetting anything?
Timmy's, we have a lead on your Elk Cove, so we will follow up with you about that as well.
Yes, we do. It's coming soon, but not here quite yet. Next week, fermented wines. Natural wines with us. We'll be hosting, and we'll go through more natural wines. We'll talk about what it is, the different styles of them, because that is a big part of who we are and what we love, and a big part of the wine community that we're trying to build. And education. It's not for everybody, but it is for a lot of people. And if you've enjoyed the last couple of tastings with Don, with Eric, then you like natural wines. You may not like all natural wines, but that's okay. You're not going to like all traditional wines or all modern wines either. You're going to find producers that you gravitate towards. You're going to find wines that you really enjoy. And that's part of the wine journey. And we're trying to make it easy for you by helping you, guide you. You don't have to walk blind through the jungle at night trying to figure out which producers you should try, and it becomes a shot in the dark. We want to help you find the producers you're going to love and drink the best wine possible for the money that you have to spend on wine that day. SelectioNatural, you're on Instagram, right, Eric? What's your tag handle?
Or for the company, it's
for the company
at SelectioNatural. That's it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Easy to find. Yeah, there you go.
Love it. And then their wines are always popping up on our Instagram as well. If you love us and you have time to give us a review somewhere, please, the more love we can get, the better. The more people we can tell about Fermented, the more people we can get on these wines, so that we can continue to support people like Eric, SelectioNaturel, the producers that they represent. And that really is the heart of what Fermented does. We all have to make a living. We all have to make money. But at the end of the day, we want to help support these producers who are doing it the right way and who are making some really freaking awesome wines. So from us to you, thank you. We love you. Thank you for the support. Come see us in the shop this weekend. Eric, thank you always for getting us amazing wines, for taking the time to do the Zoom tasting with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for supporting us and doing what you do in Alpharetta. I mean, it's an amazing thing you're doing, and you hit the nail on the head. We're really helping support these families, these producers over in Italy, and they appreciate the hell out of it. So,
yep. And as soon as they're traveling again, we will have some of them in the shop. So stay tuned for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yep. Wine dinners coming up in hopefully the near future. This Fermented Wine Natural Festival is going to kind of kick all of that off. And yeah, everybody have an awesome night. If you have the bottles of these, leave them open for the next 3 days and go back to them and try them and see how amazing they are as they change over time with oxygen.
Yes.
And that's it. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.